Imagine being so poor that sleeping on the streets felt normal. Imagine being hungry so often that you never knew if you would eat the next day. Now imagine that same child growing up to become the most famous man on earth, without saying a single word. Charlie Chaplin was not just an actor. He was a survivor, a genius, a man who transformed pain into art and silence into something more powerful than any voice. But behind the funny character, the cane, and the black hat, there was a dark, cruel, and emotional story that almost nobody knows. And the most shocking part, while the entire world loved Chaplin, he was secretly fighting wars against poverty, loneliness, scandals, and even powerful governments. So stay until the end, because the real story of Charlie Chaplin is far more unbelievable than any movie he ever created. Charlie Chaplin was born in London in 1889, surrounded by absolute misery. His childhood did not look like the beginning of a legend, it looked like the beginning of a tragedy. His father was an alcoholic. His mother suffered from severe mental illness, and hunger was part of everyday life. Many times, Charlie and his brother had to sleep in public shelters because they simply had nowhere else to go. Now imagine a child living through all of that while trying to smile at the world just to survive. That was exactly where the man who would make millions laugh was born. Chaplin's mother worked as a singer in small theaters, and one day, during a performance, her voice suddenly failed on stage. The audience started booing. Chaos filled the theater. Then something unexpected happened. Little Charlie, still just a child, walked onto the stage to replace his mother. And in that moment, everything changed. He began singing, improvising, and making little jokes. The audience, which had been furious seconds earlier, started laughing, then clapping, then throwing coins onto the stage. Charlie realized something that would change his life forever. Making people laugh gave him power, but destiny would remain cruel. Not long after, his mother was sent to a psychiatric hospital. Charlie was still very young when he watched his own mother slowly lose her sanity. Imagine what that does to a child. The man who would make the world smile grew up surrounded by abandonment, sadness, and desperation. And maybe that is exactly why his films touched people so deeply. Because Chaplin understood human pain. As a teenager, he began working in small theater performances. There was no glamour, no fame, only survival. He did anything he could to make money. And little by little, he developed something rare, an incredible ability to communicate without words, expressions, movements, eyes. He turned his own body into language. Then came the opportunity that changed everything. Chaplin joined a theater company that traveled to the United States. At that time, cinema was still being born. Movies were short, silent, and simple. Nobody imagined this new form of entertainment would eventually change the planet. But Charlie saw something others failed to notice. He realized silence could reach everyone in the world. Language didn't matter. Countries didn't matter. Everyone could understand emotions. Soon after, Chaplin started working in Hollywood. And that is where the most famous character in cinema history was born. The Tramp. The small hat. The cane. The mustache. The tight clothes. The awkward little walk. But here is the genius detail. The Tramp was not just funny. He represented the forgotten, the poor, the humiliated, the people trying to survive in a cruel world, and audiences connected with him instantly. Chaplin exploded into global fame. Within only a few years, he became the most famous man on Earth. Think about that for a moment. In a world without internet, without social media and without television. Charlie Chaplin was recognized almost everywhere on the planet. His face became a universal symbol. But while the world laughed, Chaplin was hiding private wars inside himself. He was obsessed with perfection. He would shoot scenes hundreds of times until they matched exactly what he imagined. He worked until exhaustion, controlled every detail. Because deep down, Chaplin was afraid of returning to poverty, afraid of losing everything. Then came the movie that changed his career forever, The Kid. The film told the emotional story of a poor man caring for an abandoned child. But what made it so powerful was that Chaplin was placing his own childhood onto the screen. The pain was real. The abandonment was real. The hunger was real. Millions of people cried watching it. Because for the first time, someone had blended comedy and sadness together in a way that felt almost magical. Chaplin made audiences laugh, seconds before breaking their hearts, and as his fame grew bigger, so did the pressure. Newspapers began attacking his personal life. Romantic scandals exploded across headlines. His relationships became public obsessions. Chaplin was constantly hunted by the media, but nothing compared to the danger that was coming next. In the 1930s, the world collapsed into chaos. Economic crises destroyed families. Unemployment exploded. And while many artists avoided political subjects, Chaplin did the exact opposite. He turned his movies into social criticism. In modern times, he showed workers being crushed by machines and industrial systems. The scene of him trapped inside giant gears became one of the most iconic images in cinema history. And then came the most dangerous moment of his life. Adolf Hitler was rising in Germany. The world was beginning to feel fear. And Chaplin noticed something disturbing. He and Hitler had similar mustaches. But while Hitler used his image to spread hate, Chaplin decided to use cinema to fight against it. That is when he created The Great Dictator, a bold, fearless, and extremely risky movie. At that time, many people were still terrified of criticizing Hitler publicly. But Chaplin refused to stay silent. And the final speech of that film would become legendary. For the first time in his career, the man of silence spoke directly to the world, and his words sounded like a desperate cry for humanity. We need kindness and gentleness more than machinery. Millions were deeply moved, but at the same time, Chaplin gained powerful enemies. During the following years, the United States became suspicious of anyone connected to ideas considered communist. Chaplin became the perfect target. He was rich, influential, critical of social injustice, and worst of all, he was not an American citizen. The attacks against him grew rapidly. Newspapers targeted him daily. Politicians accused him publicly. Scandals were used to destroy his reputation. Then something shocking happened. While traveling through Europe, Chaplin discovered he might not be allowed to return to the United States. The country that had made him a star was now treating him like an enemy. Imagine that. The man who made America laugh for decades being practically exiled. Chaplin was devastated, and he decided never to live in the United States again. He moved to Switzerland with his family, trying to find peace far away from political persecution and the crushing pressure of fame. But even far from Hollywood, the world never forgot Charlie Chaplin, because by then he had become something greater than an actor. He became a symbol of resistance, a symbol of humanity, a symbol of the ability to smile even when life feels unbearable. And then came one of the most emotional moments in cinema history. In 1972, already old and fragile, Chaplin returned to the United States to receive an honorary Oscar. When he entered the theater, something unbelievable happened. The entire audience stood up and began applauding. The applause continued. 1 minute, 2 minutes, 5 minutes. The entire theater was crying while Chaplin struggled to hold back tears. It became the longest standing ovation in Oscar history. And in that moment, it felt as if the world was apologizing to the man it had unfairly rejected. And perhaps the most beautiful part of all this is realizing one thing. Charlie Chaplin never stopped being that poor little boy from London. The boy who watched his mother lose her mind. The boy who experienced hunger. The boy who discovered on a stage a way to survive. He simply transformed all of that pain into something eternal. Chaplin died in 1977 peacefully in his sleep at the age of 88. But even death did not leave him in peace. Shortly afterward, criminals stole his coffin and demanded ransom money from the family. Yes, even after death, Charlie Chaplin remained global news. His body was eventually found months later, and his legend only continued growing. Today, more than 100 years later, millions of people still instantly recognize the image of the Tramp. Very few artists in history have ever achieved something like that, because Chaplin did not depend on special effects. He did not depend on explosions. He did not even depend on his voice. He understood something very few artists ever truly understood. Human emotions are universal. Everyone knows sadness. Everyone knows loneliness. Everyone knows hope. And Charlie Chaplin transformed all of those emotions into art. Maybe that is why he still feels alive today. Because as long as there is someone trying to smile through suffering, Charlie Chaplin will always matter. Now tell me something, do you think the modern world still has space for a genius like Charlie Chaplin? Or has humanity lost the ability to appreciate simple and genuine art? Comment below because I really want to hear your opinion. And if you enjoy emotional real-life stories, leave a like and subscribe to the channel because the next videos will reveal lives so unbelievable they sound like movie scripts.